Hello everyone, I'm going to be playing the UDES 3 here on Erlenberg Assault. Now this tank, it's a little bit difficult to play. Um, it only has 20 millimeters of armor, it has to contend with a very limited gun, and siege mode is a little bit difficult to get in and out of and use properly. But in this match, I end up getting an Ace Tanker award, I get High Caliber, Top Gun, and I believe a Confederate award as well, across about 5,700 damage. The good thing about this tank is it's very fast. Its top speed going forward is 70 kilometers an hour, and in reverse is actually 50. So basically, you're able to zoom in and out to where you need to go. Now, initially, I was thinking about heading over here, um, trying to help out this side. However, I see basically all my teammates heading over to the 1-3 line, which this tank you pretty much have to set up behind, spotters and a decent amount of your teammates, because if you're spotted, pretty much anything that hits your tank, definitely don't want to get hit by an SPG. You'll get one shot at most of the time. If you're spotted and get hit, you're going to take damage, and with only 1,000 HP at tier 8, some guns do 750 damage at this tier, so you definitely have to be concerned about that. So instead, I'm going to head over to this G1 spot, mainly because fighting with UDES, you're able to use its good camouflage values, and also setting up on the backside of the hills with siege mode, as you're going to see here. It makes it very easy to kind of stay hidden. Now, once you go into siege mode, the gun stats are boosted, but setting up here, you have a very small profile, and once you enter siege mode, the listed accuracy, it's 0.34, I believe. It pretty much boosts itself, pretty significantly. So you're just able to, chew away at pretty much any tank in front of you, even if it's tier 10s, because your standard round has 288 millimeters of penetration. It's an APCR round, so it travels very fast. And really, the gun on this thing is just, so easy to use because you're just spewing out all this DPM with high penetration. And if you're not seen, even in siege mode, you're a little bit limited as far as your mobility goes. But, more or less, staying at long range, you're able to get in and out of it safely. I was surprised that this guy was here, which luckily, looking at this, I know he had, worse view range than myself, being in a T-34-2. So I wasn't too concerned shooting at him here. But I'm playing this more aggressively than you might see me play this tank otherwise, because we have a lot of people over on this side of the map, and if I just sat back there, more likely than not, I would have, just been left in the dust, and either my teammates take a lot of damage and we end up losing, that kind of front in front of me, or, I don't get to continue to do damage. So really finding a sweet spot. More or less, I try to keep enemies, right within the green line, but preferably outside of the maximum spotting distance. Now, I stick in siege mode here and I pop out of it because it's taking way too long. The tier 8 UDES compared to the tier 9 and 10 TDs travels extremely slow within siege mode. The 9 and 10 travel a little bit faster. But pretty much anything you're able to point at, even at maximum range, you're more or less likely going to hit your shot. I relate this tank to, and even the 9 and 10, to essentially taking RNG out of, being a factor. Because of your high penetration, you still have a chance to bounce off of heavily armored tanks. However, more likely than not, it's, unless you're not leading a tank right, you're pretty much capable of landing a shot every tingle every single time you shoot this tank. Now, it does look a little bit awkward, poking over hills like this, which, since it only has 20 millimeters of armor, you have to keep in mind that you're armor is not going to bounce things. You're going to get overmatched by pretty much everything firing at you, unless you have some sort of light tank with like a stock gun shooting at you. Then you might be able to get a bounce or two, but just account for basically taking a shot every single time you get hit. Now at this point I have 5 kills. Pretty much the enemy is... Well, I don't even know where I'm aiming. There I am at. The enemy, you know, they're kind of screwed in a way. There is a light tank behind me, the 5916, which, considering the shortcomings of this tank's protection, I'm actually extremely worried about him, because if he gets close enough, he can pretty much just circle me. I'd have to run away, which, fortunately, this thing in reverse, you know, I can run away pretty quickly, even if I had to back up. But it takes 2 seconds, as you can see here, to get out of siege mode. So 2 seconds is a long time when something's right on top of you. But you know, I get my 6th kill, and you know, after this, don't really do too much more. But you know, it's a little hard hitting shots in between buildings. But as far as leading tanks, you barely have to lead tanks in this thing, because you know, the shell travels so quickly. But luckily for me, these 2 last tanks here, they, you know, they pretty much push in right in front of me instead of flanking around from behind. But the UDES and the Swedish TDs in particular, they are very dependent on your team. You know, if your team's not doing well, it's extremely hard to find spots to set up where you're not taking a ton of damage. The 9 can bounce a few rounds, and the 10 is very strong frontally to guns with less than 122 millimeters for their caliber on their gun. But you do have to play these tanks very carefully, and they don't always work the best if your team's folding early. But outside of, say, like Himmelsdorf and a couple of like the smaller maps, like Ensk and stuff like that, they usually have a couple spots on each map that you can set up and, you know, utilize the tank at least in the first, you know, the first few minutes. You always have somewhere that you can go to do damage. But if your team falls or doesn't take a lot of ground early on, they can be hard to actually pull off. As far as up to the tier 9, the tier 10 can tank a bit more. So fortunately, once you get there, not that you want to be out on the front line taking a lot of damage, especially if there's SPGs, but it does open up a little bit more wiggle room for you. All right, so the end game screens here, you know, Ace Tanker Award. We have a Top Gun, High Caliber, Confederate Award as well. And then the second one here, you know, most amount of damage, of course, by a pretty fair margin, like almost double. You know, second most on my team and the enemy team. But when you get matches like this where your team's kind of slowly pushing up, and you can just pick apart enemies, even if they're like Mouse's E100s. That's why I carry a few APCR. As you see, I carry, or if you saw, I carry 8. Just in case, because 288 is honestly enough for the majority of your shots. It's just long ranges against heavily armored tanks. You're going to want a few of them. And then finally, the last screen here, almost all my damage came over 300 meters. That's going to be a, you know, a trait of this tank, and pretty much every single TD that you're going to be playing outside of like maybe the tier 5. That's a little bit difficult to play and typically plays a little bit closer up to the fight. But you know, other than that, I just spotted one enemy and I took 2 hits pretty much at the end of the match. Outside of that, I don't think they ever saw me, to be honest. They might have gotten a glimpse here or there, but yeah, I don't think they've ever really, you know, thought about shooting at me, because this tank can be very small to hit. But even if you have a small little sliver of this tank, chuck around at it, specifically HE if you can. Frontally, it's going to knock out modules, do a lot of damage, and only 20 millimeter stick, you're going to penetrate it more often than not. And then profit wise, even without the credit boost, I would have made, pretty decent profit for a tier 8, but it's not a huge money maker. But without the premium rounds, you don't need to use them a lot. You can earn a profit in this if you rack up a little bit of damage each match, just because you don't need to fire, say, APCR premium or heat, like some other tier 8s might from time to time. But overall, this tank, let me pop back here. Basically, overall, this tank, as you see, I didn't even touch my APCR rounds. It is a very good tank. It's not going to be for everybody, nor will the Swedish TDs, but they are pretty damn good at what they do. And if you hate missing shots, you're going to be hard pressed once you get up to, say, the tier 6, 7, and specifically, getting into the 8 to 10. If you hate missing shots, these tanks, basically anything you miss, more or less likely is going to be on you, rather than RNG. So it can be pretty fun playing these if you're getting tired of, say, missing shot after shot in, say, like a Russian heavy tank or something. But anyway, thanks again for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Feel free to check out my live stream. I live stream here on YouTube several times a week. You can find that on my main channel page, and also check out my website, wakuver.com, for weak spot guides, tank guides, and map strategies. Hopefully you have a good day. See you around.